listen, I'm a conservative, and I've always argued that we should be making as few decisions at the federal level as possible, and that we should be moving decisions to the state legislatures around the country. It's something that I believe strongly in. I do feel like I should, respect the legislature and the decisions that they will make.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brandon Lewis, founder of the Tennessee Conservative. Today, Morgan Ortagus, candidate for the United States House of Representatives in the 5th Congressional District, joins us. Ortagus is running for Congress in the 5th District with President Trump's endorsement. She is an active U.S. Navy Reserve officer and a business executive. She hopes to stop Democrats from reversing the Trump-era policies that have really helped our economy. In Trump's Department of State, Morgan worked on the historic Abraham Accords that brought peace deals between Israel, the UAE, Bahrain, and Sudan. She led the U.S. government efforts to push back against sophisticated Chinese, Russian, and Iranian disinformation campaigns, and was instrumental in the United States' determination of the Chinese government's genocide against the Uyghurs. Morgan worked her way through public high school and college in an array of jobs, including an Applebee's waitress and hostess. Bring back the skillets. That's what I say. In business, Morgan has worked with clients in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. Morgan and her husband, Jonathan, have a daughter, Adina, who is the light of their lives. Morgan, welcome to the program. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a real honor to be on with you.
Awesome. I'm still bitter about the Bourbon Street steak and skillets being taken away from Applebee's. So perhaps we could lead some kind of protest. So we recently posted a meme on social media notifying our subscribers that there are presently 12 people not running for Congress in Tennessee's 5th Congressional District. You just got to get those 12 people's votes, the ones that aren't running. So tell people a little bit about what's motivating you to run in this seat in a very crowded field and that has seen a lot of changes in the past few weeks.
Well, I think a lot of people should be running. This is democracy. We are going to take the seat away from the Democrats. Thank God for that. And it's going to be a part of the red wave in November that will fire Nancy Pelosi and will bring Republicans back to power in the House. And so I think that Tennesseans, they have a lot of choices, which is a good thing, right? It's always good for democracy when we compete. And my hope is to meet as many people as possible and to talk to them about the work that I did for President Trump and why I think that I would be best poised to fight for them in Congress. You know, what's really important to me is how President Trump, through his America First policies, he stood up for American greatness around the world. And I was able to do that for him. I was his foreign policy voice under Mike Pompeo at the State Department, went to over 50 countries with them. And I saw the benefit, we all saw the benefit of what the world looked like with President Trump in power when you had a strong leader. You didn't see the catastrophes and the disasters that we're seeing around the world today. You didn't see that under President Trump because he was a strong president who put America first and stood up to the people who wanted to wreak havoc in our country and around the world. I think the one thing that President Trump really taught us as well is how to fight. I think he changed the Republican Party for the better in that aspect. Is he really woke all of us up to the fact that there is a group of people out there on the left that want to cancel us for everything that we believe and everything that we stand for, and they will do it if we don't fight back. And that's why I think it's so important for us to elect people who have a record, who have experience of fighting back. Listen, I am not a career politician. In fact, I've never run for office before. I think I'm like many moms around this country with young children who have been just motivated and totally and almost in despair for what we have seen the public sector school unions do to our children, do to our schools, what we have seen throughout the country as it relates to the economy, jobs, inflation. Just this morning, inflation was 7.9%. We pulled up to the gas station to get some gas. It was $4.69 over in Brentwood when we were getting gas this morning. This is just stuff that you didn't see under President Trump. And so everybody, I think, running for this office, everybody wants to fix things, right? Everybody doesn't want this to happen. But what I think is unique about me and what's required is somebody who's actually worked with President Trump to make this country great again, not only domestically, but abroad. And that's certainly what I'm going to do in this race. I'm going to put our conservative values first. I think with me, you can get a real pro-life conservative woman in this race that we so desperately need.
Well, I think much of that is well said, and I do agree there's a groundswell of activists, women in particular, mothers, grandmothers that were never politically active. Things finally got bad enough to shake people from their apolitical stupor, and I'm glad to see them engaged in Tennessee at the state level. We certainly need it because the grassroots and the establishment are not aligned. Go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com and hit that red support button. When you do that, we will send you a proud Tennessee Conservative bumper sticker. Also, we will send you a Don't California My Tennessee bumper sticker, a directory of your state officials in the House and the Senate, that puppy right there. And if you should give $50 or more, you will get this proud Tennessee Conservative tumbler. What are your top 5 areas of focus when you get to Washington, D.C.? There's so many things that need to be fixed in our nation and in our state, but there's only so much time, and you're one out of a whole gaggle of people up there. It is quite different from being in an executive role. So what are your top 5 areas of focus when you get to D.C.?
I think what I would argue, to Tennesseans is, yes, I would be one of hundreds, right? And we know that. And whoever wins a seat will be a freshman member. But I think that I have the unique ability to be a player on day one because people know my record of working with President Trump. I was in the trenches with him, Mike Pompeo, Rick Grinnell, Robert O'Brien. You can go through the list of President Trump's top national security team who endorsed me. And they did that because, they know that I know how to fight. And I think that that's a key differentiator is I'm not going to go to Washington and be a backbencher. I'm going to be at the front of all of these major issues, at all of these major fights. And I know how to do it because I've done it under President Trump. Now, when you talk about key policy priorities, my friend, there's so much wrong with the world. It's hard to narrow it all down. We have so much to do. I think we have to principally start at our own southern border. That is a southern border that you would see in a failed state, right? This is not something, and I've been in and out of a lot of war zones and a lot of war-torn countries. That's the kind of border you see in a failed state, not something that you should see in one of the world's superpowers. It's not only is an embarrassment, it's really dangerous to our own national security. We've got people from multiple countries, not just Mexico or the Northern Triangle countries. We have, people from at least, I think, over 100 different nations that have come through the border of the last statistic that I saw. That is a national security threat. We don't know. We do not have the ability to properly vet these people. And so I'm worried about it from a national security perspective. I'm also incredibly worried about the drugs that go through this broken border. The fentanyl is one of the major drugs going through, and that is the #1 killer of our young people in this country. I mean, how this is not something that Biden and his team are not talking about every day is beyond me. Our young people are dying from fentanyl. That is a direct result of his border that he left unsecure. We didn't do it in the Trump administration. He was building the wall at the State Department under Mike Pompeo, our team. We were negotiating the Remain in Mexico policy, the asylum cooperation agreements that secured that border. So it can be done. I know, I was there. I was a part of the team that did it. And finally, just from a humanitarian perspective, it is inhumane what we are allowing to happen at our southern border. There's a lot of human rights issues, human trafficking. Think about the number of stories that we read about young women, teenage girls that are raped multiple times on the way to the border by a trafficker. I mean, you're telling me that situation is humane? That what Biden is allowing to happen because these, young people think that they can just come here and get in, and yet they're being, destroyed physically and emotionally on the way here. That's somehow humane. I don't buy that. So I think that's got to be our top priority. As somebody who spent a long career in national security, it's incredibly important to me. Secondly, listen, just this morning, as we mentioned earlier, it's got to be about the economy. 7.9% inflation, 6.6 as it relates to just gasoline. This is, unaffordable. I saw a statistic that the price of gasoline in California per gallon is higher than the hourly minimum wage. How are people supposed to afford a full cart of groceries and a full tank of gas? Makes absolutely, no sense to me. This inflation is the highest in 40 years. I think the last record was set in January 1982, which is just a few months before I was born. So that's pretty catastrophic. So we've got to have people that will stand up to that. And part of that, by the way, I mean, the biggest push that we need to do as a party is getting us back to where President Trump had us as energy independent. We cannot be relying on Russian, what this administration is talking about, or potentially Iranian, Venezuelan, oil. They are so obsessively focused on climate change. It's their religion, right? And they're so obsessively focused on it as a religion that they exclude all the possible realities of drilling more here at home, opening up those leases, opening up that exploration. When Biden says that it is Putin's fault that the price of gas is what it is today, that's an outright lie. The numbers that were released this morning are from February, before the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So no one should believe the lie that gas prices are Putin's fault. The gas prices are a direct result of Joe Biden and his team's failed leadership. And again, I take it back to the border. It is a national security risk for us that we are not energy independent and that we cannot produce our own energy here at home. You would have thought that we would all have learned that lesson before. Clearly, we haven't. So those I think are really top two. For the top, I think for number three, there's probably like 3 or 4 different issues that are incredibly important to me that, it's hard to prioritize them all. As somebody who has a long national security background, obviously I look around the world and I see a catastrophe. Listen, I was a part of Abraham Accords under President Trump. We handed to the Biden administration, when we were in power, we negotiated the Abraham Accords, which are the first deals between Israel and Arab states, 4 of them, first peace deals in 26 years. He should win a Nobel Prize for that. I mean, it's amazing what we were able to accomplish. It's quite frankly something that I didn't even know that we could accomplish in our lifetime. So what happens? We have peace because President Trump punished our enemies, maximum economic pressure campaign on Iran, and rewarded our friends and allies. And we stood by them. And that was so important. And so we handed the Abraham Accords over to Biden. He gets in within 3 months. Hamas is attacking Israel. Within 7 months, Kabul has fallen to the Taliban with 13 dead Americans as a direct result of his failed and botched pullout from Afghanistan. And within a year, we see a ground war in Europe with Russia attacking and invading Ukraine. All of these things did not happen under President Trump's watch, even though we were constantly told that they were going to. They didn't happen under him. So I think the national security bucket is really important to me. Also, this cancel culture thing, I think and it encompasses a lot of different buckets. I'll tell you why I think it's really important, because no matter what you're looking at, whether it's how kids are being treated in school with masks and CRT and the closing of schools, and suddenly we're in an election year and science has changed and none of us have to wear masks anymore, right? Supposedly, what we have done to our children, especially children that come from lower economic, backgrounds, they don't have, this is why I'm such a big believer in school choice, because those parents, when their public school closed, what ability did they have? Especially if you were a single mom, you couldn't afford a tutor, to come in and make sure your child stayed up. I mean, that's ridiculous, right? That's something that only the elite could afford. And so I think that we are going to be paying for a generation for what we've done to our children over the past 2 years. It's going to have reverberating consequences, and people need to be held accountable. But I put what's gone on with our schools under the cancel culture umbrella, because I think that there is a broader effort to stamp out and to silence anyone who doesn't agree with the way that you think or feel. This is something really simple, but like Airbnb, I think it was Airbnb, said that they were not going to allow Michelle Malkin and her husband to rent because they don't agree with them politically. Like, is that really where we are, as a country? If that's where we're headed, I can tell you, I spent a lot of time speaking out on the genocide in China, the forced abortions and the forced sterilizations of women there. That's what happens when you have a country who doesn't value life, who doesn't value freedom of speech, who doesn't value individual freedom. And we have to stand up and fight. Like, I'm not a politician. I've never run for office before. And I've always thought, oh no, that won't be me. That's not my thing. But then I suddenly realized, I can't sit around and wait and hope that President Trump runs again in 24. I certainly hope he does, but I can't sit around and wait for that. I have to get in the fight now. And so what I would encourage all of our viewers, maybe you decide to throw your hat in the ring like so many people are, especially if you're a mom, right? For school board or for mayor or for whatever the local, position is, Congress, whatever it may be. I think that we need an army of conservative moms that are tired of what's happening in this country, that are pissed off at what they're doing to our kids, and that are willing to stand up and fight and say, not me, not on my watch.
Well, I think those are good priorities. And interestingly enough, as a segue into this next question, the same folks that are trying to disqualify you as a candidate are also the people that are currently sitting in committees and subcommittees up in Nashville. And they have recently voted down illegal immigration reforms that would make our state safer. They have voted down in these committees and subcommittees medical freedom bills. And for 18 months, they hid behind our governor's skirt instead of standing up for the constitutional rights of our people. And when it comes to school choice, we just had a couple of school choice bills killed by these conservative Republicans that are also running this legislation that would disqualify you. So let's get right into that. You're facing a unique situation in Tennessee as it relates to your ability to be on the ballot as a Republican. Now, there are the party rules, and you have to negotiate that yourself. That's campaigning 101 with the bona fide status. You may have to go in through front of the SEC committee. Hopefully they pass you. But then you've got this recent legislation that's conformed to the Senate now that requires 3 years of residency. Mm-hmm. There may be legal challenges. Who knows if the governor will sign it or not? But it does make for a complex position when you're trying to run for office. In my opinion, I can see that it may be a good rule to pass. I can understand why people would want somebody to be in their state for a long time. I just now feel like a Tennessean, and I've been here 20 years. I felt like an Alabamian until recently. But at the same time, I do not believe that you should change the rules in the middle of the game. And I think it is a lot of home cooking. It's a bad look. And it looks like trading favors, which is what a lot of Republican primary voters think. So with all that having been said, how would you address this issue to make sure that your campaign can be viable?
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to address it. I don't think I have yet. So you're breaking news here, my friend. So first of all, as it relates to the party rules, I'm a lifelong Republican. I voted in every election that I've been able to vote in. My first election that I voted in was year 2000. I just turned 18 in that summer, and I was a Florida resident at the time I was going to college. So what an important lesson for me to learn as a young person about just how much every vote really does count. So that really helped shape me as a young person on how important my voting history and how important it is to vote in every election that you can. And I'm certainly very proud to be a lifelong Republican. As it relates to the legislature, listen, I'm a conservative, and I've always argued that we should be making as few decisions at the federal level as possible, and that we should be moving decisions to the state legislatures around the country. It's something that I believe strongly in. So I've tried to be really respectful and not speak out, because I do feel like I should, respect the legislature and the decisions that they will make. I guess what I would say, and again, this is really my first time speaking out on in an interview like this, so I appreciate the opportunity you've given me. What I'd say to the voters of Tennessee is, give me the chance, get to know me. There's going to be, as you said, there's a lot of people running. There's going to be more people getting in. There's going to be a really competitive primary in August, and I'd like the chance to be on the ballot and to be a part of it. I think that I've earned that through my lifelong status as a Republican, but also my work for President Trump and my commitment to raise my family here and to be a part of here, and the businesses that I've started here in Tennessee that are providing, by the way, new high-paying jobs here in Tennessee. So I just want the chance to compete on an even playing field, to compete with everybody else, to make my case. I don't think anybody is owed anything, right? I don't know how many, I don't care how many offices you've ran for, how many times you've been in elected office. None of us are owed anyone's vote. It is a sacred right to vote. And I approach it very humbly, very sincerely. And I would make the case to the voters of, let me get to know me. And I hope that you can learn why President Trump had the faith in me to endorse me. Let me tell you about what I did for him. I've seen some people say, oh, he got bad advice. Well, it's silly. He knows me. Well, I worked for him. I talked to him one-on-one about this. There was no one else in the room. We know each other. I fought for him for a long time and worked for him for a long time. And so what I'd like is just to be given the opportunity for people to know me and to hear why somebody who is not a career politician, not a part of any of this, but why somebody like me would get motivated to throw my hat in the ring. I can tell you, whenever I raise my hand to be an officer, to be commissioned in the Navy Reserve, when I raised my hand in the Trump administration, when I raised my hand to work in national security and intelligence all those years, no one asked me my residency. They just knew that I was raising my hand to serve my country. So no matter what happens, I will be humble and respectful of the local decisions that are made here. At the same time, I of course would like to be given the opportunity to compete, fair and square. And I'd also just like to say, no matter what, I'm a conservative Republican. I'm going to fight for this state. I'm going to fight for my country like I always have and I always will.
Well, I will put words in your mouth where you can't. I think that Tennesseans deserve the right to decide if you would or would not be a good candidate. I don't have much of a dog in this hunt. There's a lot of people running that I think would do a good job, but I do think the legislature is, I think it's a bad look, and I think that they are removing choices for Tennessee residents. I wish that they would be as enthusiastic and as quick to act on school choice and illegal immigration as they have disqualifying you as a candidate. If they could summon up that courage and energy, that would be fantastic. If our viewers want to learn more about your campaign, where would they go?
So they would go to morganortagus.com. That's MorganorTagus.com. And all my social media handles are also at Morgan Ortagus.
Okay. Well, we enjoyed having you on the program. It's been a privilege. Good luck to you on the campaign trail. And for those of you in our listening audience, if you want to see more interviews like this, please go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com or follow us on social media and subscribe to our podcast wherever you get them. Until next time, I'm Brandon Lewis, signing off.